Okay, people, let's try this again. I think I fixed the problem. So when you come on, just let me know if you guys can hear me. We are trying this again. I think I discovered what the problem was. I hope I discovered what the problem is. And I hope I fixed it. So I see Stephen and Charles is on. Thank you. Stephen, what city do you live in? I'm not too sure. I know Nicholas and Gwendolyn from New Jersey is on. Charles from California is on. I'm assuming you guys can hear me now that you're saying it. Stephen, you're from New Jersey? So Willie Patterson, you're on. Thank you, Lord. Thank you. Willie, where you live at? Check in with me. It's all good. Perfect. So what I was saying to my beautiful people, what I was saying to you guys is tonight I am going to be very, very transparent. So I'm always transparent, but tonight I'm going to be very transparent. I'm going to be vulnerable tonight. And so even though I'm tough, even though I'm an alpha female, I am still a sensitive person. I know that's hard for people to realize because, you know, you get me in the wrong spot. You'd be surprised how I respond. You know, if you disrespect me or lie to me, my response is not always nice. So I do understand that about me. So I want you guys to know that when I'm disclosing tonight, I'm going to have a moment of truth. Well, it's always truth for me, but I'm going to have a moment of naked truth tonight. So, you know, I hope you guys understand where I'm coming from, and it's all relevant to the topic. Okay, so Willie is from Chicago. Oh, shoot, Chicago, stand up. Hey, Benisa, where you live at? Where you calling? Where you tuning in from? Sounds very good and clear. Thank you so much, Gwendolyn. So, today, for those who are following the book, we are in chapter 6. And although chapter 6 talks about female teachers and Black male culture, yesterday, when I was not on a book club, if I would have read this chapter yesterday, I think I would have handled myself with my son differently. I think. I'm almost certain that I would. And although yesterday was a very stressful moment for me, and my kids do not often see me respond how I responded yesterday, but I have an ultra low tolerance for disrespect, and I have an even more difficult time accepting disrespect from a male. And maybe because I'm an alpha female, I'm not too sure. And when I say a difficult time, if you disrespect me, and I'm just being honest, guys, so, you know, take me for being vulnerable, show me your love, because, you know, I got nothing but love for y'all. So, you know, I need y'all support in this. But if I feel disrespected by a male, see, I can contain myself better when it's coming from my child, because I have unconditional love for my child. And I know relationships, ideally you should have unconditional love, but it's rare to get that. Not that it's impossible, it's rare to get that. But with my son, I have unconditional love. With a man, if you disrespect me, the gloves are off. The femininity is off. The learning how to be submissive is off. Like, if you disrespect me as a man, I won't put my hands on you ever, because my uncle, I was raised by a whole bunch of guys. So maybe that's why I'm an alpha female. I have a lot of male friends, and a lot of males in my family helped to raise me because I didn't have a father. And maybe it's because I've been raised with a male's mindset, I act differently. But one thing I know for sure, I won't put my hand on you, because my uncle used to always tell me, if you put your hand on a man, expect to get hit back. Not that it's right, but expect to get hit back. So I don't do that, but I will hit below the belt if you disrespect me. If you disrespect me, there's no mercy. I'm sorry, it's open game. I could become very aggressive. I'm just letting you know, I'm laid back, chill, calm, cool, and collected till I'm disrespected. Yesterday, I swear, I wish I would have read this chapter, good Lord, before I went through what I went through. I'm just being honest with you guys. So let me tell you the story, and I'll be quick with my story, and then we're going to go into chapter 6. Yesterday, I got news that, long story short, my son was not respectful in school, got disciplined, and me not realizing, by the time I got to him, me not realizing he was bottling up all of that emotion, I got the brunt of it, if you guys get what I'm saying. So I was hoping to do the book club, but I just mentally wasn't in a position. Went to go get my son a haircut. And he got in trouble because of his hair, just to be transparent with you guys. My son has a lot of hair, and then his hair, the texture of his hair is not as curly as mine. If you guys ever see me with my curly hair, you'll see how curly my hair is. It's not as curly as mine, and it's not as straight as like a Puerto Rican. But his hair is in between the two. And when it grows, it's crazy. He goes to a prep school. So he was told to cut his hair. So his hair got him in a lot of trouble. Not a little bit of trouble, a lot, because they felt he was being defiant, not getting a haircut. And I take some accountability for that. Because how I look at it is, he's my son. Now, this is what boys do to their hair. They grow it crazy. But when you're in a boys' prep school, they condition you to be a man. And in their culture, they believe a man is to have short hair, right? So when I go into the barbershop, I tell them to cut his hair shorter. I walk in, and I'm not being calm about it because I'm in serious mode. I'm in mom mode, and there's no negotiation here. Not when my money pays for your tuition, and not when my money is paying for your hair. There's no negotiation. So I walked in, and I saw her, and he's looking at me like, Mom, don't say anything, please. And I said, cut it shorter. So now the guy is kind of confused, like, oh, God, you want me to cut it shorter? Because I guess he already had a discussion with my son. I don't know. So he starts to cut it shorter. My son loses his cool. And if y'all could only hear, he wasn't cursing or anything like that to me, but he became very aggressive toward me in the shop. And I'm cool in the shop because we're in public. That's one thing about me as a female. I'm going to keep my cool when we're in public. You can be disrespectful as a dude. I'm going to keep my cool in public. We get behind closed doors, the gloves are off. Because I don't disrespect you. I'm not going to come out my mouth toward you. I expect the same respect toward me. Boy, when I got in the car, y'all, I wish I read this chapter before I experienced that. My brother was there. I think I scared him because he hasn't seen me like that since we was kids. When I got in the car, can I just tell y'all, I hit the ceiling. All types of language was coming out my mouth that I am not proud of. But I could not help it. I mean, if I wanted to punch his head right through the window, like, who the are you talking to? Just the aggression, the amount of aggression that came out of me. Now, my son is an alpha male. So if you already know the energy between the alpha female, alpha male, it wasn't good. My brother had to take him out the car. They went wherever they went so they can talk. But let me tell you, I was so angry at my son. I didn't have anything else to say to him. I have a regimen before they go to sleep. And even though he's a teen, I still have my regimen before bedtime. My I loves you, our critical conversations, everything. My hugs, my kisses, my playing with him, my roughing up. But I am also the same mother who has taught my son how to fight. Because my uncles taught me how to fight. I taught my son how to fight. I taught my son a whole bunch of things. As much as I can teach him about being a male, being a leader, I'm the one who taught my son. So I felt ultra disrespected when he came out of his face with me. Ultra disrespected. Long story short, today I read this chapter, which I'm going to introduce you guys to. And as I was reading it, I was saying to myself, damn, why didn't I read this yesterday? Why didn't I read this yesterday? So I'm going to read this chapter to you guys. And I want you guys to tell me what you think. But I had to be honest. I understand my aggression. And the reason why I shared that with you guys was no other reason than to tell you about this chapter today. For all the ladies out there who do not have boys, God bless you. God bless you. For all the women out there who do not have alpha males, I don't know if I want to say God bless you because I like my alpha males, but God bless you. God bless you. I'm serious because this is not easy. So let me read this to you. We're going to look at African American culture, male culture, and their synthesis, black male culture. Okay, that's what we're going to look at today. It is a sad commentary, but many blacks do not feel they have a culture. W.E.B. Du Bois, In the Souls of Black Folks, get that book, read it, it's a good book. eloquently describes the double consciousness in warring souls. Double consciousness. Let's talk about that. So the double consciousness actually means when you feel, when inside of you, one part of you is African and the other part of you is American, right? So hence the term African American. He breaks that down to be this difficulty of trying to be African, which is often thought of being black in America, and being American, which is thought of being white in America, or American being white in a black community. So how I want you guys to understand it this way. To be African is one part. To be American is another part. And for many African Americans in this country, we have a double consciousness because we know to be among those who share our identity as being black. I know to be among them, we know that there's a certain culture that comes with that. And then when you go into society, to be American is another culture. And oftentimes to be American is being associated with being white and are assimilated into white culture. And that's what double consciousness is. He says many blacks give up trying to please either soul and they become very individualistic. Their motto is, I am just trying to be me. I see that so much in our community, so much. We don't really have our original, no, not we don't really, let me rephrase that. We do not have our original culture. We were taken from a continent that is home to us. And when we came over here, we were stripped of everything. So if you can ask the average African American person what country in Africa they're from, they're not going to know. What tribe are they from? They're not going to know. What was their culture's native tongue? They're not going to know because we were taken from that culture and we were given the American culture. But being in America, which is the institution of slavery in America was the worst type of slavery in world history, period. And even being in this culture, the American culture, the black man and woman is still not fully accepted. We're still not fully accepted. They don't like us if we're too black. And if we're too white, our own people don't like us. So oftentimes this creates stress for us. And we wind up giving up. We give up the idea of being African American. We just want to be ourselves. We just want to be individual. We just want to be identified as the human race. No other culture identifies this way. They may say I'm Italian. They may say I'm Irish. I'm German. I'm Russian. I'm Egyptian. I'm Nigerian. I'm Korean. I'm Japanese. I'm Filipino. I'm Chinese. Everyone else has a way they identify, but us. But us. So when you talk about African American culture, the one thing that Dr. Kunjufu breaks down in African American culture is the things how we identify with each other. For example, language. Now, granted, this book was written back in 1986. So I'm going to add in some stuff that he didn't write because I'm bringing it up to date to 2018. But like when he says language, you have Black English, better known as Ebonics. Y'all know that's what we call it now. Ebonics. You have rapping, slang, and oral rather than written. And oral rather than written means that many of us, we can express ourselves better through words, whether we're being in our lyrics of a song, whether we have spoken word, whether we just debating. It doesn't matter. We know how to eloquently and powerfully express ourselves through words rather than written. You have our music. He has here soul, jazz, gospel, rap, but I'm going to add in hip hop and R&B. We have our music. We have our food. We have our soul food. We have our spicy food. We eat a whole bunch. I mean, Thanksgiving is ridiculous. I've gone to plenty of white Thanksgivings and they look nothing like our Thanksgivings. Our Thanksgivings, you have everything but the bathroom. Okay. Then, you know, the people say everything but the kitchen sink. No, we got that too. Our food is ridiculous the way we eat. Some people, when they be posting their food on social media, I be looking at them like, what the hell, that's dinner? Because they have so many damn items. No wonder we sick. No wonder we dying. But the point is, this is our culture. Our dress is different. We are some flashy people. My Lord, we could live in the projects but have a Louis belt. I just don't get it. I don't get it. But that's how we are as a people. Our religion, our learning styles are even different. He goes on to say everyone has a culture, including people with two warring souls. That is us, the double conscious people. Culture is a lifestyle. It represents what and how. It represents what and how of everything that we do. We cannot afford to have teachers placing negative judgments on Black culture. Let me stop right there. We cannot afford to have teachers, whether they're Black teachers, white teachers, male teachers, female teachers, it doesn't matter. We cannot afford for teachers to place a negative connotation, a negative meaning to Black culture. So let me go back to the story, my personal story that I opened up with. See, after I went through my hell, it was my hell yesterday, because I don't like to get caught off of my equilibrium. I like to be centered. I like to be at peace. You know, and maybe I got caught that bad is because it came from my own blood. It came from a being that I created. You understand? So maybe that's why it caught me that bad, because other people don't get me like that. I see people acting crazy, I'm like, wow, they crazy, and I walk away. I see people acting crazy that don't have they're not close to me, it's not in my intimate circle. I'll cut you off and keep it moving. Like, no problem, because it doesn't faze me. But when it comes to my kids, I wish I would have read this before I lost my cool. So here it is. We have this teacher in my son's school, and he has placed a negative connotation to Black culture. See, to him, he doesn't see my son's hair as a cultural thing. He doesn't. He doesn't see the way my son may be roasting somebody, or the way he may be interacting as beautiful as part of Black culture. See, when you start to put negative connotations on our culture, you start to see us in an aggressive manner. You start to see us less than human. You start to see us as a threat. And when you are operating in that way, you try to control that as much as you can. I'm talking to white America. Control it as much as they can, because it makes them uncomfortable, because they lack understanding as it relates to Black culture, right? He says, how can you teach a child you do not understand or respect? Now let's look at some of the traits. Let's look at some of the traits of an African-American male. The ego of an African-American male child, okay? The ego, larger and more sensitive than that of most girls. Do y'all hear me, ladies? Larger and more sensitive. This is written by a male, a Black male scholar. Larger and more sensitive than that of the girl. So when my son flipped out last night, I wasn't thinking that everything he was experiencing in school, piled up, was taking a toll of him. I didn't know that it was breaking down him psychologically of how he feels about self. I had no idea that was happening. And so I tell you this for a reason, because, you know, a lot of us women who are mothers of sons, we don't always sit back and look at the bigger picture to see what's happening here, what is obvious and what is not so obvious. We look at it this way. It's a rule. You must follow rules. And there's nothing wrong with that, but just think about what I'm saying. It's a rule. You must follow rules. Do what you're being told. And when we see our sons getting angry, we don't often sit down and try to discover what's going on. The only thing I saw in the barbershop was a boy who turned angry at me in a drop of a dime. A boy who's yelling at me about me messing up his hairstyle. Me altering his whole hairstyle. I've done taking it out of context. He might as well just cut it all off because I messed it up. See, I'm not looking at what the underlying issue is. I'm looking at, are you losing your damn mind, disrespecting me, let alone in public? You must not know your mother. You about to lose your teeth. That's how I'm looking at it. And so it's interesting what he says, and we have to really pay attention to that. And a lot of men won't admit to it, but I know this as a clinician. When I see guys and I treat guys, I treat a lot of men. They're a lot more sensitive than what we are. And when their ego feels bruised, they respond aggressively. Not all of them, but I'm talking about majority of them, aggressively. Then he talks about the macho type of man. He says the macho man prefers handling problems physically rather than emotionally. Handling problems physically rather than emotionally. So they're not going to talk through their problems. They're quick to punch you in the mouth than they are to talk through their problems, right? And then there's the athletic male. Values athletics more than academics. And then you have the male who is non-communicative and a risk taker. Those people are less emotional. Their accent is on being cool. Their peer group uses risk as their rite of passage. I dare you go smack him in the head. I dare you go do X, Y, and Z. I dare you, I dare you, I dare you. They don't think about the consequences, but that's their personality. He says teachers who have a healthy respect for Black male culture develop their application in childhood. People who have grown up with Black males and they understand how they operate, they develop their appreciation about them when they are in their childhood. So when I read that, I was saying, oh my gosh. Now, when I first started this podcast today, I told you guys, when I was growing up, a lot of males participated in raising me. So I wasn't being raised primarily through a female perspective. It was through males. Hence, today I have more male friends, and I'm talking about road dog friends. I'm talking about if I call you, if I got a problem, they know it's a problem because I'm in their circle. You get what I'm saying? We're going to handle the problem. And it's not always rational when you get me there. It's not always a rational thing. The therapist goes out the window and the Bronx comes out of me. I'm just being honest with you. I haven't been like that since I was in my 20s, but I'm just being honest with you. I understand the demons that are inside of me, and I try to keep them under wrap. I told you guys this was going to be a vulnerable session. I was going to be very transparent and give you guys the naked truth. So when I thought about that, this is why when people buck off of me, the fear is not there. It's not there. And so when my son was responding how he was responding yesterday, I wasn't thinking, let me be the nurturer, let me talk to him, let me calm him down. I was thinking, oh, so it's going to be a situation out here, let's get it. I was not thinking in a loving way. But for those teachers and females who are not similarly blessed with this experience of having an understanding of the male culture, we need to have departments that trains people. Like if you're going to be a teacher, part of your educational curriculum might be to understand male culture, because the male culture is very much different than the female culture. It's very much different. And so we have to be very mindful of that. He says the issue of male culture transcends race. White and Hispanic boys are also known for their ego, aggression, athletic orientation, non-communication, and risk-taking. The rate of progress of the members of these three groups is directly influenced by institutional racism and teachers' ability to understand these cultures. So I'm not sure what exactly was going on in my son's school. And you see, with institutional racism, what people don't seem to realize is institutional racism doesn't have to be the act of a racist person. It means that it's already interwoven in the system and it works on its own. It is always there. It is always impacting us in a negative way. A lot of people hear the word racism and they automatically assume, oh, so you're calling me a racist. You could work in a system and not necessarily be a racist, but when you carry out the policies and the procedures of the institution that is designed to put certain people in different boxes, then you are perpetuating institutional racism. And I wish I would have sat back yesterday and really thought about this, because my son was angry from being a victim of that. And not that his teacher was being racist himself, but he's perpetuating policies that does not give way to one's culture. It does not say, okay, this is just the black culture, this is how it goes. No, no, no. It says, I don't care about your culture. If you're going to be here, we're all going to be as similar to each other as possible. I have a problem with that. I personally have a problem with that. Because if I'm doing the work, if I'm making the progress, if I'm exceeding and passing the test, if I'm respectful, if I'm all these things, why are you giving so much attention to my hair? Why? What is it about my black hair that makes you uncomfortable? What is it about my fro, my afro, that bothers you? What is it? And see, when you really think about that, and you have that pressure on a young black boy, such as my son, it could make somebody feel angry. Because what you're asking him to do is change who he is in order to make you feel comfortable. That's exactly what's being asked. In order to make you feel comfortable, because you have associated negativity with his culture in itself. It's a school when everyone is in uniform. All the boys dress the same. Well, damn, let their hair just be different. What would have happened had my son had dreads? If he had dreads, would you have expected him to cut his dreads off when the dread is a part of his culture? And again, I wasn't thinking about that yesterday. Because even when we are conscious people, even when we live within our culture and we love and we rep our culture, we still have this programming that has been placed on us by the American society. So here it is. I'm not even thinking that I became in that moment a co-conspirator. You see what I'm saying? Do you guys see what I'm saying? Do you hear where I'm going with this? And that's why this book is so important. Because we don't think about these things. And especially when we're acting out of emotion. Last night was a big emotional thing. I'm looking at his response to me. And I'm like, you lost your mind. The mom who does everything for you. The mom who teaches you so much. You disrespected? So in my emotions, I reacted. I met his aggression with aggression. But never once. That's why I swear I wish I would have read this chapter yesterday before everything popped off. Not once. Then I back up and I start looking at this through another lens. And that's why I'm going over this book with you guys. Because we have to be in a position to think critically by removing the emotion. In that very moment, I became a co-conspirator. I was helping to perpetuate their belief about black culture and not even realizing it. Isn't that scary? But that's how fast this stuff works. This is how quick it works. It doesn't need you to think about it because it works for you. That's what the system of institutionalized racism does. It's a system that works by itself. It's always working. When you're sleeping, it's working. When you're awake, it's working. When you think you're conscious, it's working on your subconscious. You feel what I'm saying? This is crazy. This is crazy. And I didn't know I was doing it. I didn't know I was doing that until I read this chapter. He goes on to say, Hispanic males have the highest dropout rate, which is attributed to language barrier and the strict gender role expectation of being the family providers regardless of age. Now, this book was written back in 1986. So I see how true that is, especially 20, 30 years ago. The Hispanic culture was really, it was just starting to get popping. It wasn't how it is now. I remember not being a lot of Hispanics back in the day when I was growing up, 30 years ago, 40 years ago. It wasn't a lot. But now it's different. So that's true there. Black males disproportionately lead in special education placements, suspensions, and athletic scholarship. Black males lead in suspension. So listen to this. Check this out, guys. Check this out, guys. Here's another part. So yesterday, that I found out before the big blow up happened, he got detention for his hair. Listen to what I'm saying, guys. Listen to this. Detention for his hair. Then, when he was trying to explain himself to the teacher, after the teacher handed him his detention slip, the teacher turns around and walks out the classroom. His Spanish teacher, who is a white female, who speaks Spanish, yes, they exist, and I'm talking about European white, she turns around and she says to my son, "You've been warned a number of times about your hair." Now, I didn't know any of that until today, because he didn't have the words last night to put it into perspective. So she says, "You've been warned about your hair." And so he tries to explain himself to the teacher about the circumstances that was happening in my life that prevented him from getting a haircut. And he ended his explanation by saying that that teacher that gave him the detention was ignorant. So the female white teacher turns around and says, "I understand you've been having a difficult week. I understand your frustration. But even though I understand all of this, here's another detention slip." So she writes him up. So my son, as he explains to me today, is how can she say she understands? How can she say she's aware of my frustration and then adds insult to injury by not letting me vent myself how I needed to vent myself? I didn't say it to the teacher's face. I didn't disrespect them. I said it based on her making a statement to me. So she gives him the detention slip. So he looks at her like, "Really?" The bell rings. He looked at the detention slip and he walks out the classroom. He didn't take it. So she calls the principal's office. Check this out, guys. See where I'm going with this. So she calls the principal's office and she let him know of his behavior. So they come, the principals, the big Italian dudes come, get him out, and then he gets 2 days in school suspension. So he has a detention because of his hair, which they said to me on the phone, the hair wasn't that big of a deal, so why give him a detention? So he got detention because of his hair. Then when he called the one teacher ignorant, and the statement that he made ignorant was in there, he got in-school suspension for that because it's disrespecting an authority figure. And then he walked away from the teacher that gave him a detention for calling him ignorant. He got in-school suspension for that, for not taking a slip and walking away from her. He says in this book, black males disproportionately lead in special education placements, suspensions, and athletic scholarship. Suspensions. Was that really necessary? Was all of that really necessary? And so I had titled this broadcast, "I believe fear causes me to be a tough mom." So when I'm hearing detention and 2 days in school suspension, the fear kicked in inside of me. It's like, we're not going through this again. I went through this in public school. We damn sure not going through this in private school when I pay 18 G's for you to be here. We damn sure ain't going through this in private school. And so my fear caused me to say, let's cut this hair off. But the truth is, cutting the hair off wouldn't solve the problem. That's the truth. The truth is, had my emotions not been on 10, because I'm hearing suspension, I'm hearing detention, and I'm not liking what I'm hearing. Had I been in this chapter, maybe I would have handled it differently. Maybe I would have called the school and had a sit down with them and explain to them black culture, as I've always done in the public schools that he's been in. And this is what the system does. The system plays on your subconscious. You're not aware of how you're responding. You're just responding. And that was me. I didn't allow the social worker in me to seep through. What my shirt says, y'all. Right? Y'all see this? Let me see if y'all see this. Let me see if y'all see this. You see this? Black social workers matter. That's what my shirt says, right? Black social workers matter. I didn't allow the social worker in me to come through. I didn't allow that to happen because I'm not thinking that this school is going to do this to my son. But the truth is, when we are in an American system and we are not educating our own, this is what's going to happen. That's what's going to happen, okay? That's the truth. That is the truth. So here it is. As you can see, social workers for social justice. I play no games. So you know I got to handle this differently now. You know I got to check it. Now that my consciousness is woken up. See, we could walk around all day and saying we conscious and we woke. We don't understand that with 400 years of chattel slavery, we are the victims of slave psychology. Even when you believe you are the most woke and conscious person on earth, the system will still fool you because that's how the system works and that's how the system has always worked. You better believe it. You better believe it. And ordinarily, when it's somebody else's life, I can sit back and lead them with no problem because I have no emotions. Y'all hearing me? I have no emotions tied to it. That's what makes me an excellent clinician. I have no emotions tied to it. This is your life, and I can see it from a different perspective, so I'm going to help you navigate it successfully. But when it's my life and my children, emotions are always going to be tied to it. Always. But now that I can sit back, and I read this book, see, that's why we got to read these books, man. So many people are turned off about the book. You turned off because you are unaware of your culture. You are unaware of who you are. You don't like to be African. You don't like to be black. That's why you turned off. It was me reading this chapter that grounded me. It was me reading this chapter that said, oh, shoot. Damn, I was a victim again. We are under the influence of slave psychology and we don't even know it. It works without your consciousness, baby. Your subconscious has to be woken up. This is not no, yeah, black power, black love. This is not that. This is chess, baby. You got to be ready to play chess. Don't sit down with me at a chess table. Because that game is going to go for a long time. You understand what I'm saying? I raised my son on playing chess, but he's been messing up. He's been messing up. But this chapter today, I believe, started saving his life. Let me finish this chapter so I can get on out of here because I'm getting mad. I'm getting mad. Oh my gosh. He says here, female teachers must understand that black boys value their peers, their walk, rap, signifying. He calls signifying what we call roasting or snapping. When I was growing up, it was like, yo, whoa, it snaps on your moms. That's when I was growing up. The kids today call it roasting. Damn, they roasted you. She got roasted. She was flamed. That's what they call it today. Back in the days, I guess, in his era, they called it signifying. He said they value this more than anything else. Teachers are not going to sway these boys of their way of thinking with condemnation of things the boys value. But check this out. Female teachers are not the only ones that have condemnation about black male culture. Even some black males who don't even like to identify as black or as African, who just want to be American, but we know what it means to be American. They just want to be American. They just want to be themselves. I'm of the human race. Even them condemn black male culture. And what he's saying is your condemnation alone is not going to get these young boys to shift their belief system. In fact, they're going to go up against yours. Condemnation may instead cause them to defend their expression. The dozens, which is snapping, like to signifying, when you snap on somebody, when you roast somebody. The dozens is an activity primarily performed by males in which usually two opponents duel verbally. They make derogatory comments about each other and each other's family members, usually the mother, right? That's roasting, that's snapping. Y'all remember that growing up, right? The performance of each player is appreciated and judged by the group who urges them on. This is called a manhood right because it serves an important function. This right here, ladies and gentlemen, is a paragraph that is beginning to save my son's life. The boys must master several important competencies in order to be a good player. What do y'all think that is, based on my experience that I gave y'all? First of all, he must control his emotions. He must control his emotions. In the classroom, before the teacher gave my son another detention, the female teacher, the white female teacher, the reason why that happened, because he was not able to control his emotions. When the white male teacher gave him a detention slip, he should have just ate that. But he knew in life circumstances, in his private life, what was going on that did not allow me to get to a barber to get his hair cut. He knew what was happening in our personal life. And he felt that if I'm expressing it to you, honor that, understand that. But they didn't show any understanding because that hairstyle, his afro, makes them uncomfortable. That's what it is. So when they tagged him with a detention, he allowed his emotions to get the best of him. So when we see young black boys and they rapping on each other or they roasting each other, that's part of what they do. And we have to be able to respect that and understand it. It's part of what they do. But this is what happens. Here in the presence of his friends, terribly derogatory statements are made about his mother, who is dear to him. He must suppress his emotional reaction to what is being said so that he can think quickly and counter with an even more clever slur upon his opponent's mother. Unfortunately, when black male children volley verbally in an aggressive, threatening manner, some teachers misunderstand and interpret their behavior as fighting, when actually they are signifying, meaning they're roasting each other, to relieve tension and avoid a fight. Large numbers of black males are labeled as having disciplinary problems and are often suspended because of the roasting. People who do not understand black culture take words of this right literally. When black parents tell their children, "I am going to knock you into the middle of next week," the phrase needs to be tempered with a black cultural perspective. That is so true. That is so true. And see, and this is what I learned from reading this chapter. This is what I learned last night. Where I went wrong is because, you see, I grew up in the ghetto. I grew up in the Bronx. I was raised by males. We all roasted each other. If you was in that circle, you was a female, they didn't look at you as being a female. They look at you as being part of the dudes. And we all snapped on each other. We all had mama jokes. And we all had to learn how to control our emotions. And maybe that's why, as a clinician working with my black people, maybe I'm good at what I do because of that. Because I was able to get my mind trained and conditioned a different way. Where I went wrong is my kids were raised in a suburb. My kids have always been of the small percentage of any school they went to, which was predominantly white. And in the public schools, predominantly Asian. So he didn't learn how to master his emotion because he wasn't around other children who were free to roast each other. You see, because in these suburban areas where there's a level of affluence, when I say affluence is when you can send your child to a school that costs as much as freaking college tuition. You understand what I'm saying? When you have that, these women primarily emasculate the boys. And we're not even aware of that. If they start joshing on each other, roasting each other, it's broken up immediately. They're given detention. They're sent to the principal's office. They're chastised. But it wasn't like that for me growing up in the Bronx in a failing school that had metal detectors. The only thing they was hoping that another shooter don't come into school and shoot somebody in the head. Real story, 1992. You can look it up if you want to. Roosevelt High School, Bronx, New York, summer school. Shooter walked in, boom! And we all ran out the building. So, in the Bronx, growing up, and I can only talk about the Bronx. My Chicago people and everybody else, y'all can tell me how it is where you're at. But in the Bronx, growing up, you have to be cool and level-headed. You couldn't think on your emotions. Emotions would get you killed or locked up. Let me say that again. Emotions would get you killed or locked up where I was from. So my son was never raised in that environment. He was never raised in that environment. So he didn't quite understand it until I made him read this chapter today. So here's the last thing and then I'm out of here. It says, when black boys look at female teachers with a look of defiance, if that is not my son, I don't know what is. With a look at defiance, I call this the showdown between female teachers and black boys. If the dozen, meaning roasting, did not exclude him from the mainstream, like get him suspended, special education and stuff like that, in most instances, the showdown will. If you stare a female teacher, a white female teacher down, baby, bye. You better not stare no teachers down. Even black female teachers, because some of them are nasty. Some of them don't even understand male culture. Some of them got their own issues going on in their own life. Female teachers, period. They bring their daddy issues into the classroom. They bring their molestation issues into the classroom. Some of them may not be straight, and they bring their sexuality into the classroom. And they're educating our boys. And ain't nobody going to sit down in an interview and be like, so have you ever been raped when you was a child? Have you ever, been seeing your mommy beaten by your father when you was a child? Have your father ever beat you when you was a child? Are you gay? Are you straight? No one's going to ask you that in an interview. And sometimes they bring all of this stuff with them when they're dealing with our black boys. So the showdown is something that's not tolerated. You can't stare a female teacher, especially a white one, in her face. But that's what boys would do. And the showdown will not always match strength against strength. Some female teachers are afraid of black boys. And I do not believe that you can teach a child while afraid. The showdown is a battle of physical, emotional, and intellectual strength. And adults cannot win without leverage. Many homes use the belt as leverage. That's a whole nother topic. A major problem from schools occurs when children only respect. See, if you use a belt at home, by the time they get into school, the school only respects, the child only respects physical punishment. Not assertive communication, behavior modification, and denial of privileges. The only other leverage a teacher has is love, cultural understanding, and mutual respect. So I say this to say, as I end this chapter, it is my assertive communication, it is my logical and rational communication, it is my unconditional love, and my respect for my son that saved us. That saved us. Not last night. Last night we both just went to our own rooms. He didn't talk to me. I didn't talk to him. And we already just know that about each other. That's that alpha energy. We already know that about each other. But let me tell you what happened today. And then I'm out. I promise you guys. This is what happened today. He came out on his own to me, ready to speak. I said, what happened? And all the other extra stuff that I was telling you guys, how he started to feel like he was being targeted for his hair, that's when that came out to me. He never told me before. And we're talking, and we're bringing everything down. And even at that moment, when I was telling him about emotions and all the other stuff, before I read this chapter, he did the showdown with me. The showdown with me. See, the difference between me and a lot of female teachers out there, so they're gonna try to exert their authority and their power, and they're yelling and screaming. I don't gotta do that with my kids. I tell my kids all the time, and it's not to be misunderstood, because people who know me know I don't have to physically hit my kids. But I tell my children all the time, If you ever feeling froggy, leap. I will knock you though out. And see, what people don't tend to understand is that is a part of Black culture. Because I'm not going to have a child disrespect me. Many of us has been told by our parents, I brought you in this world, I'll take you out. Now, they don't really mean that they're going to kill their child. But we let you know, I'm not playing those games. You can't buck on me like that. It's just not going to happen. And when he talked to me, he told me all this stuff. What do y'all think I did? I gave him this chapter to read, and we discussed it together. And he started to understand, because I said to him, where did you go wrong? He said, I became emotional. Not only in the classroom, but last night. Ladies, I hope you get this. I hope you really get this. And it's not to attack the female. It is to help us become better at raising our boys. Because sometimes we just don't have the help. Even when the man is in the home, we just don't have the help. And that's the reality. And for the fellas, I hope you understand that we need you. We need our guys to help us raise these boys into respectable men. We need you guys. We need you guys to be active. We need you guys in discipline. We need you guys in structure. We need you guys in love. We need you guys. I'm not one of those females that would swear up and down, I don't need a man. And I don't need you to be there for my father. I need a leader. I need a head. I know that in my personality. Because I am an alpha, I need one over me. If that makes sense. You know, so that's all I have for you guys today. I hope y'all take that from love and be able to apply it. And honestly, if you don't have this book, get it. No one is saying you have to read it all the way through, but just keep it so you can refer back to it. Because had I not picked up chapter number 6 today, I would not have known how to have the conversation with my son, because I still would have been angry. I love you guys for real in my Monique voice. I love you guys for real, and have a good night.